So here you have Neo. Let me grab my mouse. All right. So you got Neo Soul. Disregard this. This is just for me to talk. Neo Soul, tonality. The good thing about tonality is it can act as a slide over, which is nice. So chord wise, you're normally going to come in with a 4x4 that's empty. There's a few options to get chords. You can use inspirational. You can find some on patch storage, scale notes, but scale chords is usually what you want to go to. So you got triads, sevenths, ninths, and then you got major, minor. So let's just do sevenths, and then let's pick. We'll go Dorian, and we're gonna include the secondary dominants, and we're just gonna pick whatever key we want. So we're gonna pick C, just for purposes of trying out. Hit create, and then it creates the chords. So the chords that are on the outside, let's say sevenths, are your dominants, right? These right here. And then the chords on the inside are all your chords in that scale. So you have the 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you want to know how they go in that order, you just start with C. That's your first chord. D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat. Those notes are the same notes that are also in the scale. So you can learn your scale while you're doing the chords. All right. Go to your settings. In your settings, just match what I have. That's the best way to learn it. You can look at it and pause the video if you need to. You want to turn on trigger velocity sensitivity. This will give you some random sensitivity when you're pressing on the sound. Randomize chord velocity. Make sure it's on, but put it somewhere about 50%. Randomize note velocity. You don't want it too high. I would put it about maybe 25% max, but put that on. Random attack. Bring that down a little bit. Okay. Make sure your MIDI quick assign is to manual. Auto detect chords. MIDI is usually on 1. That's fine. And then there you go. You can see. Make sure this is on send all, on note on. Otherwise, it'll start missing some notes sometimes. But usually you don't have too much trouble with that. So just pause the video if you need to, and then do that. Set those up. Then save it as your default, and then click done. So in Tonality, there's 2 setting menus. One is down here with these 3 dots, and it says settings. If you have this in full screen, it'll look a little different. Let me show you. I'll go back to chords. Okay. So yeah, it'll look a little different, just so you know. But don't worry about that. Just go ahead and put it in slide over, because you'll probably want it that way if you want to see which one you're selecting back here. So inside of Tonality, if you don't see this keyboard down, just press this, because you can move it down and up. This one right here is to set the MIDI trigger, so you can trigger it from a keyboard. This is your ability to strum, right, up and down. So just turn this on. Down here's another settings, and you can see strum, vertical. So you can change the width of this and make it wider or smaller. Leave labels on because you want it labeled. All right, that's the basics of strumming. Down here is a velocity. You can turn the velocity up. You can also set it to where it goes from the bottom to the top, kind of like Beatmaker 3 does, where you can hit where you hit the pad, the velocity is going to change. When I'm working in here, generally I like left to right, and I'll show you why here. These chord pads are kind of small, so depending on what you're working on, it's going to be kind of narrow. So if I go left to right, it's like moving this direction just seems easier. But if you don't and you want to go bottom to the top, that's fine. That's normal for most people. They're used to the bottom to the top. Just set it for your preference. All right, back to chords. So these chords can be edited. Right now, they're in a basic what they are type thing. But if you go down here, you'll see this right here can be changed. You can open it and see all the options you have, like copy, paste, swap chords, rename, recolor, move them up an octave, down an octave, invert up or down, or even transpose. And if you swipe up with your finger, I'm doing it with the mouse so you can see it, you can see that you have all those options right there. You do have a sustain. You can use your sustain if you choose. Now, if you, let's say you wanted to move this chord, what you would do is you'd hold this down and then touch, and it moves in an octave. You want to move it back, hold this down, touch again, moves it back. If you want to invert or move the furthest chord up, you can do so. I'm just scrolling through with this one. So you can, so here's what it looks like. Now you see that last note, which is like right there, is gonna move. So I'm gonna do that. So it gives you an inverted chord. And you can just keep doing it until you want to move it back, click this one, and move it back. Now let's say you want to put a bass note on a chord, because the chord's not thick enough, you wanted to have a little extra bass note. That's what this one is for. If you touch it once, it adds one bass note. If you touch it again, it adds two. See how much thicker that chord sounds? Now to remove these, use the pencil icon. And just add, you can click here, and you see it's a light side and a dark side. This is to play it. This is to edit it. And you can take the notes off or add notes. The light pink notes show you what's in scale, and the other notes are out of scale. You can edit the velocities or do the same thing here. You can rename the chord if you wanted to. We're not going to do all that, but you can see all the options are right here too to do that if you go in the edit mode. Okay, go back to play mode. Now there's a few secrets in here. I'm not going to show all of them in this video because it'll take forever, but I'm going to show you how to set this up. Let's get the setup first because this will get you going. If you click here and hit settings, go to sound and MIDI. Inside of sound and MIDI, you want to make sure you disable the sound font. Otherwise, it'll play a sound that's built into here like a guitar. See, it says guitar. You want to make sure send MIDI out is clicked on. And you can see the MIDI input sources are there. Now, one cool thing about Tonality is that it generally will connect to whatever you have open. So see how it's here? It's already connected. MIDI. So how did I get there? Just one more time is the wrench. Touch on the MIDI and make sure tonality output is checked. As long as it's checked, then you should have sound. And you can see it's playing on both devices. All right, back to showing you a few more tricks and tips. There's one button in here that can be kind of confusing. It's this one. And what it is it's a button that tries to get your chords close to the best possible match, I guess you'd call it. That's probably the better way to describe it. In here, He describes it as a voice lead. So voice lead is kind of like, I pick the chord I'm going to start with. Let's say I'm starting here. This is my voice lead. If I click here and do it, you'll see a ring around, but I have to hold it for you to see it, around the other chords. Now, if I touch, that's the closest chord they think that sounds projected to that. Here's another one. So now they're all in close proximity to the first chord. So and if you want, you can go ahead and throw a bass note on everything. Thickens it up. Okay, so that's your basis of how to do it. This is C Dorian. You can do this in any scale. It's the same thing. There's a few other tricks, but I'm not going to go into them because it would take some time. I think I've done it in some other videos, but this was just a real brief getting started and using tonality. If you want to sustain a note, you can just slide this over. Okay. So that's that. You can adjust the velocity like here, right there. And that's the gist of using the pads. This is for scales. We'll talk about that another time. This one right here is so that you can see which notes fall in the scale. And this is a visual of the different chords that you have that you could drag and drop into the pads. So if you come in here, you can drag this into this section here. I'm not going to do all that right now. I just want to show you how to get started. So once again, empty 4, go to scale chords, pick your scale set that you're going to use, and then start adjusting tonally how you want these chords to fall, and then you can play them. Okay, want to strum? Click on that one. There you go. All right, simple use case of tonality with neo soul. So there you go. All right, that's it for this video.